Let's go with the trade, though, Dawn, at number 8 overall, with the 49ers trading up ahead of the Saints, ahead of the Bears, to grab Armand Membou, the tackle out of Missouri. So he's the first offensive lineman off the board for you. Why did you feel like it was needed for the 49ers to move up to number 8 and grab Armand Membou?
So I think between 9 with New Orleans. Some people are still mocking Will Campbell to the Bears at 10, which I'm not a huge fan of. I think they could go elsewhere, as we've seen, as I did with Ginty. But I think when you have the Saints at 9, you have the Niners at 11, you've got even the Cowboys at 12. I don't know that offensive line's completely off the board. Miami at 13. There's this little run in the early teens here where you've got a bunch of teams that could get into this offensive tackle class. That's not even to mention New England could still do it at 4 if they like somebody like Campbell or Membou enough, or we don't know that they would, if there's any scenario where they would trade down, and depending on who's there, would it be Abdul Carter? In this case, I have Travis Hunter. I think for me, for the 49ers, when I was looking at what the simulator would actually let me do for the trades, because of course PFF mock draft simulator, we can do trades and it'll even evaluate the percentage chance that a team would accept such a trade. You know, I think it's a win-win here. You get the Niners ahead of the Saints. That was the big thing. Get ahead of the Saints at 9, who in this scenario, with Campbell on the board, with Membou on the board, would get their pick of offensive lineman, because the Panthers, we very much assume, are not going to take an offensive lineman. The Panthers benefit. They get the 100th overall pick, and they only move down 3 spots. We'll get to their pick in a minute. But I think it's a small price to pay, even though it's the last of the top 100 picks, to go, okay, the Niners get their pick of offensive linemen. I'm of the belief that they're going to build in this draft heavily in the trenches. Offensive line especially. You've got Trent Williams for however much longer you have him. You've got Dominic Puni at right guard, but they have to get better in pass protection, and Armand Membou would be a perfect zone blocker for their scheme. Plug and play at right tackle. You have Puni and Membou on that right side. I think that could be potentially dominant. I think it's a small price to get up ahead of the Saints to take their pick of whichever offensive tackle they want, especially if they're all still on the board and none of them went in the top 7.
Yeah, I like it. I think it makes sense. And also Carolina can move back from number 8 overall. You're still going to get a premier pass rusher at number 11 overall, right? There's still a lot of edge rushers you can grab at number 11. So you add another third-round pick on top of that. It makes sense for Carolina. And then, like you said, with the 49ers, I mean, I still think they can get one of the top tackles at number 11 overall, whether it be Membou or Campbell or Kelvin Banks. But the problem is, the Saints might take one at number 9. You mentioned the Bears could still be interested potentially in one. I don't think they would be, but they could be interested. And also, there's the opportunity for the Panthers to trade with a team like Miami, who's looking, okay, we got to grab one of these guys. We can't have one of the other teams, all of them be gone by the time we pick. And also, the Cowboys could do the same thing where they might want to trade up to grab one of those tackles as well. So it's almost like a preventative measure if you're the 49ers saying, okay, instead of letting everyone else leapfrog us and grab these tackles, we're going to go up a little bit, only give up a late 3rd-round pick, basically a 4th-round pick if you really think about it. Then we can grab our guy instead of hoping that one of them lands at number 11.
Especially consider with Membou specifically, okay, as the best right tackle in the draft. That's what he played at Missouri. And I'm sure there's teams that think that would assume he's athletic enough to move over to the left side, right? But you talk about the Niners have issues at right tackle. Saints have issues at right tackle. Dallas has issues at right tackle. The Dolphins, they don't have issues at right tackle, but they need offensive linemen wherever they can put them. So yeah. I think you've got 4 teams in, a 5-pick stretch there that all need offensive linemen. I think it very well could be that that's the stretch of offensive linemen and even maybe a Josh Simmons is thrown in that mix too for how desperate some of these teams are, especially for pass protection. I think for the Niners, when I was putting this together, I was like, I just feel like somebody might move up just to get that. It's almost like the mini first overall pick among that offensive tackle group. Who's going to pay enough to get their choice of the offensive lineman? The scenario I put together here was the Niners doing it, only moving up 3 spots, like you mentioned, only giving up the 100th pick, but it's a worthy price to pay if that's the guy you really, really want.
And also, Membou is a guy that would fit in perfectly. I think it's a seamless fit for him in San Francisco.
Absolutely
honestly, as well. Drake Holiday in the chat even says he thinks Membou goes top 7. He thinks the Jets. In our mock we just did for the PFF NFL show, go check it out. I had the Jets taking Armand Membou too.
And it would be conditional upon that, right? Because I have the Jets taking Tyler Warren here instead of Membou. If Membou goes to the Jets at 7, then you go, okay, what is the urgency for a Will Campbell? What's the urgency for a Kelvin Banks? How long are these teams that are itching for offensive line help waiting, right?
Yeah.
And in the Jets at 7, that's the argument with Membou is, you're picking that high, but you don't get a second chance at a guy either. So if you don't take a right tackle now, it's something that's going to get talked about on day 2. Maybe somebody like an Ozzie Trapilo, Jonas Savaianeo, whatever it may be for the Jets. So it's a trade that would not happen until the Panthers would be on the clock at 8, because the Jets are a huge wild card to me in all of this.
Yeah.
I really, it could be tight end, it could be right tackle, it could be defense. I don't know. The first 6 picks feel like they could be reasonably predictable. I get to the Jets at 7, and I go, it feels like 4 or 5 different directions they could go.
Hey, thanks for watching another episode of the PFF College Football Show. Please make sure you guys subscribe to the channel.
Also, subscribe to PFF Plus at subscribe.pff.com for all of the same data and grades that we use in our show, plus fantasy tools, betting tools, and our mock draft simulator.